The stars had been silent for 3 days. Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the empty space where the Centauri mining colonies used to send their daily reports. His ship floated in the darkness between Earth and the outer settlements, waiting for news that never came. The silence meant only one thing. They were coming. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park Ji-won from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the computer screens. "I'm picking up something on the long-range sensors. It's big." Lee Hyun walked over to look at the data. Numbers and symbols filled the screen, but he could read them well enough. Whatever was out there was massive, much bigger than any human ship ever built. "How big?" he asked. Park Ji-won's face was pale. "At least 50 ships, sir, maybe more. They're still too far away to get an exact count." The bridge fell quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The aliens had finally found Earth. For months, the outer colonies had sent reports about strange ships appearing in distant systems. Ships that demanded surrender before attacking. Ships that belonged to something called the Valthran hegemony. Every colony that met them either surrendered immediately or was destroyed completely. No one had ever successfully fought them off. "Sir," came a voice from across the bridge. It was Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho, climbing up from the lower decks. His uniform was dirty from working on the engines. "The fusion core is running perfectly. All weapons are ready. The ship is in the best shape she's ever been in." Lee Hyun nodded. The Defiant was humanity's newest warship. She had the most advanced weapons, the strongest shields, and the fastest engines Earth could build. But she was still just one ship. "Communications," Lee Hyun called out. "Get me Admiral Choi Yuna on Luna Station." The main screen flickered to life. Admiral Choi Yuna appeared, sitting in her command center on the moon. Behind her, dozens of officers worked at their stations. Everyone looked worried. "Captain Lee," she said, "I assume you've detected them too." "Yes, ma'am. At least 50 ships, possibly more. They'll reach the outer system in approximately 6 hours. Admiral Choi nodded grimly. "We've been monitoring their advance for weeks. They've destroyed or captured every human settlement between here and Centauri. No survivors, no prisoners. They either make you surrender completely or they wipe you out. What are our orders, Admiral?" "You are to intercept and delay them as long as possible. Give us time to evacuate the civilian populations from Mars and the orbital stations." Lee Hyun felt his stomach tighten. "Admiral, with respect, one ship against 50 is not good odds." "I know, Captain, but you're all we have in position. The rest of the fleet is spread across the system on patrol. It will take hours to gather them together." The screen went dark. Lee Hyun stared at it for a moment, then turned to face his crew. 23 men and women looked back at him. They were young, most of them. This was their first real mission on the Defiant. None of them had ever been in actual combat before. "You heard the Admiral," he said quietly. "We're going to meet them alone." Navigator Oh Sung-jae spoke up from his station. "Captain, I can plot a course that will put us right in their path. If we position ourselves near Jupiter, we can use the planet's gravity to help our maneuvers." "Do it." Weapons Officer Kang Ji-hoon checked his displays. "All weapons are loaded and ready, sir. Railguns, plasma torpedoes, and energy cannons are at full power." "Good. And our medical bay?" Chief Medical Officer Song Yoon-ji nodded from her position near the back of the bridge. "Ready for casualties, Captain. I hope we don't need it." Lee Hyun hoped so too, but he doubted they would be that lucky. The Defiant moved through space toward Jupiter. Behind them, Earth spun quietly in the darkness, unaware that its fate might be decided in the next few hours. Ahead of them, the alien fleet grew larger on the sensors with each passing minute. Park Ji-won studied the incoming ships carefully. "Captain, I'm starting to get better readings on their fleet. They have different types of ships. Big ones that look like carriers or battleships, medium ones that might be cruisers, and lots of small, fast ones. Any weaknesses you can spot? They seem to group together in tight formations, and their energy signatures suggest they use some kind of shield, technology, but I can't tell how strong it is." Hours passed. The alien fleet came closer and closer. Finally, they were close enough that the crew could see them on the main screen without sensors. They looked like nothing humanity had ever built. The ships were smooth and curved, almost organic-looking. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish swimming through space. "Incoming transmission," announced communications specialist Han Minji. "It's on multiple frequencies. They're trying to contact us." Put it on screen. The image that appeared was both terrifying and beautiful. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore some kind of elaborate uniform covered in symbols and decorations. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the computer into perfect English. "I am Supreme Admiral Kethex Valdros of the Vialthron Hegemony. You will surrender your ships and your world immediately. Resistance is futile. No species in the galaxy has ever successfully opposed us. Submit now, and your people will be allowed to live as servants of the hegemony." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. Lee Hyun stood up from his captain's chair. "Han Minji, open a channel." "Channel open, sir." Lee Hyun looked directly at the screen. "This is Captain Lee Hyun of the United Earth ship Defiant. You are trespassing in human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." He cut the transmission before anyone could respond. Park Ji-won stared at him. "Captain, did you just threaten an alien empire that has conquered the entire galaxy?" "Yes, I did." "They're responding," Han Minji said quickly. "Multiple ships are powering up weapons. They look angry." "Good. Let them be angry. Oh, Shungjae, take us toward their fleet. Maximum speed." "Sir, are you sure about this?" Lee Hyun sat back down in his chair. "Lieutenant, 300 years ago, my ancestors fought wars on Earth. They faced impossible odds many times. Sometimes they lost, but sometimes when they stood up for what was right, they won against enemies that seemed unbeatable. Today, we stand for Earth. We stand for humanity. And we will not back down." The Defiant accelerated toward the alien fleet. On the sensors, energy readings spiked as the enemy ships prepared for battle. In the distance, more alien ships continued to arrive. The odds were getting worse by the minute, but Captain Lee Hyun was not thinking about odds. He was thinking about the people on Earth who were counting on him, the children playing in parks, the families having dinner together, the scientists working to make humanity's future brighter. All of them were depending on one ship and its crew to buy them enough time to escape. "All stations report ready," he ordered. One by one, his officers confirmed that they were prepared for battle. The Defiant flew toward what might be humanity's last stand, but her crew was ready to fight. Behind them, Earth waited in the darkness. Ahead of them, an empire that had never known defeat prepared to add another species to its collection of conquered worlds. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. Admiral Choi Yuna watched the tactical display from her command center on Luna Station. Red dots marked the approaching alien fleet, while a single blue dot showed the Defiant moving to intercept them. The sight made her stomach hurt. Communications are still trying to reach the outer colonies, reported Lieutenant Han Minji, who had been transferred to Luna Station for the emergency. No response from any settlement beyond Mars. They're all gone. Keep trying, Admiral Choi ordered. And get me a direct line to Captain Lee Hyun. Tactical Officer Yoon Dong-hyuk looked up from his screens. Admiral, we're getting detailed scans of the alien fleet now. They have weapons we've never seen before. Some kind of energy beams that can destroy entire asteroids in seconds. Admiral Choi nodded grimly. She had been studying reports about the hegemony for weeks. Every encounter followed the same pattern. The aliens would arrive, demand surrender, and then demonstrate their power by destroying something large and impressive. Usually that was enough to make any species give up immediately. How long until they reached the inner system? She asked. At their current speed, about 4 hours, Yoon Dong-hyuk replied. The Defiant will intercept them in approximately 1 hour. On the main screen, the alien fleet looked like a dark cloud moving toward Earth. There were so many ships that the sensors could barely count them all. Admiral Choi had seen battle reports from across the galaxy. The hegemony never brought a small force to a conquest. They always came with overwhelming numbers. Admiral, Han Minji called out. The hegemony is broadcasting on all frequencies. They want to talk. Put it through. The screen filled with the image of Supreme Admiral Valdros. He looked even more intimidating on the large display. His uniform was covered in medals and symbols that probably represented all the worlds he had conquered. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the command center. I am Supreme Admiral Kithex Valdros, Supreme Commander of the 7th Conquest Fleet of the Vielthran Hegemony. I address the leaders of the species called humans. Your resistance ends now. We have destroyed your outer settlements. We have eliminated your defensive positions. You have one opportunity to save your people from complete destruction. The alien paused, letting his words sink in. Surrender your homeworld immediately. Disable all weapons. Prepare your population for integration into the hegemony. You will become a client species, serving the greater good of our empire. Your technology and resources will benefit the galaxy under our guidance. This is the only mercy you will receive. The transmission ended. The command center was quiet, except for the humming of computers and life support systems. Admiral Choi had read about this moment in dozens of reports. Every species that encountered the hegemony faced this exact choice: surrender and become slaves, or fight and be destroyed. Until now, everyone had chosen to surrender. Han Minji, open a channel. To the alien fleet. Channel open, Admiral. Admiral Choi stood up and faced the screen. She thought about what to say. The fate of humanity might depend on her next words. Supreme Admiral Valdros, this is Admiral Choi Yuna of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your message. Here is our reply. She paused for a moment, then continued. We refuse your offer. Earth belongs to humanity. We will not surrender our freedom to anyone. If you want our world, you will have to take it from us. She cut the transmission. The command center erupted in nervous chatter. Some officers looked excited, others looked terrified. Everyone knew that no one had ever refused the hegemony's surrender offer before. Admiral, Yoon Dong-hyuk said quietly, are you sure about this? Our intelligence reports say they've conquered over 1,000 worlds. They've never been defeated. Then, it's time for their first defeat, Admiral Choi replied. On the tactical display, the alien fleet suddenly changed course. Instead of continuing toward Earth at a steady pace, they accelerated. Weapon systems began powering up across their entire formation. "They're not happy," Han Minji observed. "Good. Let them be angry. Angry enemies make mistakes." Minutes passed. Then the long-range sensors detected something new. "Admiral," Yoon Dong-yuk called out urgently. "They're targeting the asteroid belt. Massive energy buildup on their largest ships." "What are they doing?" "I think they're going to demonstrate their power. Show us what their weapons can do." On the main screen, the alien fleet opened fire. Beams of pure energy lanced out across space, striking the largest asteroids in the belt. The rocks didn't just explode. They disintegrated completely, turned into clouds of dust and vapor. "Jesus," someone whispered. The demonstration continued for several minutes. When it was over, an entire section of the asteroid belt had been erased from existence. The aliens had just shown that they could destroy entire planets if they wanted to. Another transmission came in. This time, Supreme Admiral Valdros looked annoyed. "Observe the power of the hegemony," he said coldly. "This is what happens to those who resist us. You have witnessed the fate of worlds that refuse our generous offer. Surrender now, or your planet will suffer the same destruction." The transmission ended again. Admiral Choi looked around the command center. Her officers were staring at the empty space where the asteroids used to be. The display of alien power had been impressive and terrifying. "Han Minji, open another channel. Are you going to surrender?" Yoon Dong-yuk asked quietly. "No. I'm going to give them another answer." The channel opened. Admiral Choi looked directly at the camera. "Supreme Admiral Valdros, we saw your demonstration. Very impressive. You can destroy rocks. Congratulations. But you're not fighting rocks today. You're fighting humans, and humans don't surrender." She ended the transmission and turned to her staff. "Get me Captain Lee Hyun on the Defiant." The screen switched to show the bridge of the human warship. Captain Lee Hyun stood in the center, looking calm despite the approaching enemy fleet. "Captain, the aliens have demonstrated their weapons. They can destroy planets." "I saw it, Admiral. Very impressive. But the Defiant is not a planet. We're a warship built for battle. We're going to show them what humans can do." "You're still vastly outnumbered." "Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. We have something they don't." "What's that?" Captain Lee Hyun smiled grimly. "We're fighting for our home." The transmission from the Defiant ended. Admiral Choi looked at the tactical display again. The blue dot, representing humanity's newest warship, was moving steadily toward the cloud of red dots representing the alien invasion fleet. "Admiral," Han Minji said, "we're receiving reports from across the system. Every civilian ship that can move is evacuating toward the outer planets. The Mars colonies are loading their transports. Luna City is preparing emergency shelters." "Good. At least we're buying them time." "What about us?" asked Yoon Dong-yuk. "Luna Station is a military target. They'll probably attack us after they deal with the Defiant." Admiral Choi nodded. "Then we'd better make sure we're ready for them." She activated the station-wide communication system. "All personnel, this is Admiral Choi. We are now at war with an alien empire that has conquered most of the galaxy. They expect us to surrender without a fight. They expect us to be afraid of their superior numbers and advanced weapons. They're wrong." Her voice echoed through every corridor and compartment of the station. "We are the United Earth Defense Force. We swore an oath to protect humanity from all enemies. Today, we keep that oath. Every person on this station has a job to do. Do it well. Do it with pride. And remember that the entire human race is counting on us. She closed the channel and looked back at the tactical display. The Defiant was getting closer to the alien fleet. Soon, the first battle between humans and the hegemony would begin. Han Minji, monitor all frequencies. I want to know everything that happens out there. Yes, Admiral. Yoon Dong-hyuk, prepare our defensive systems. If the Defiant falls, we'll be next. Understood. Admiral Choi sat down in her command chair and watched the display. Somewhere in that approaching fleet was an alien commander who had never lost a battle. He had conquered countless worlds and enslaved entire species. He believed humans would be just another easy victory. He was about to learn that humans were different from every other species he had ever faced. The Defiant was flying toward what might be her destruction, but she was not flying alone. She carried with her the hopes and determination of an entire world. The battle for Earth was about to begin. War Commander Nexeth studied the approaching human ship from the bridge of his destroyer. As the hegemony's most experienced scout commander, he had led the advance forces for dozens of conquests. He had never seen anything like this before. The human vessel continues to approach at maximum speed, reported his tactical officer. They show no signs of slowing down or changing course. Nexeth frowned. Usually, when primitive species encountered hegemony ships, they either fled immediately or stopped to negotiate. This human ship was doing neither. It was heading straight for them. "Are they trying to ram us?" asked his second-in-command. "Possibly. Deploy the forward screen. 12 ships in attack formation. We'll disable them quickly and capture their vessel for study." The hegemony destroyers moved into position. They were sleek, elegant ships, designed to overwhelm enemies with superior firepower and advanced shields. Nexeth had used this same formation to defeat resistance fighters across the galaxy. On the Defiant, Captain Lee Hyun watched the alien ships spread out in front of him. They moved in perfect formation, like they were performing a dance. It was beautiful and intimidating at the same time. 12 ships dead ahead," reported Lieutenant Park Ji-won from her sensor station. "They're spreading out to surround us." "Let them," Lee Hyun replied calmly. "Kang Ji-hoon, are the railguns ready?" Weapons Officer Kang Ji-hoon checked his displays. "All railgun batteries loaded and charged, Captain. Plasma torpedoes are ready to fire. Energy cannons are at full power." "Good. Oh, Sung-jae, when I give the word, take us straight at the biggest ship in their formation." "Navigator." Oh Sung-jae's hands hovered over his controls. "Straight at them, sir. That puts us right in the middle of their firepower." "Exactly. Where I want to be." Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, the fusion core is running hot but stable. We can give you everything you need." The alien ships opened fire first. Beams of energy lanced across space, striking the Defiant's shields. The ship shook, but held together. "Shields down to 80%, Park Ji-won reported. "Their weapons are powerful, but not as bad as I expected." "They're not trying to destroy us," Lee Hyun realized. "They want to capture us intact. That's their first mistake." The Defiant closed the distance, rapidly. When they were close enough, Lee Hyun gave his orders. "All weapons. Fire at will. Target their engines and weapons systems." The human ship unleashed its arsenal. Railgun rounds shot out at incredible speed, moving too fast for the alien point defense systems to intercept. The magnetic projectiles punched through alien shields like they were made of paper, tearing into hull armor and internal systems. plasma torpedoes followed, guided by the ship's computer to strike weak points, revealed by the railgun impacts. Energy cannons added to the destruction, cutting through alien hull plating. War Commander Nexith watched in shock as 3 of his ships were crippled in the first exchange. The human weapons were unlike anything in the hegemony arsenal. Instead of energy beams that could be deflected by shields, they used solid projectiles that simply smashed through defenses. "Return fire! All ships, concentrate on the human vessel!" The alien destroyers poured energy into the Defiant. Her shields flared and sparked, but the ship kept fighting. "Shields down to 40%, Park Ji-won announced. "Hull damage on decks?" 5 and 6, Chief Medical Officer Song Yoon-ji's voice came over the intercom. "Medical teams to deck 6. We have casualties." Captain Lee Hyun gripped his chair as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Kim Tae-ho, reroute power from life support to shields and weapons." "Already on it, Captain. Shields back up to 60%. The Defiant swept through the alien formation like a shark among fish. Every time the hegemony ships tried to surround her, she changed course and attacked from a new angle. Captain Lee Hyun used tactics that no alien commander had ever seen before. "Ramming speed," he ordered suddenly. "Sir?" Oh, Sung-jae looked confused. "You heard me. Take us straight at that cruiser. Full speed." The Defiant accelerated toward one of the larger alien ships. At the last second, Lee Hyun ordered a hard turn. The human ship scraped along the alien vessels. Hull, her railguns firing at point-blank range. The alien ship's armor cracked and split under the assault. War Commander Nexith had never seen anything like it. The humans were fighting like wild animals, taking damage that should have disabled them and continuing to attack. His formations were designed to fight civilized opponents who followed predictable tactical doctrines. "Sir," his tactical officer called out urgently, "we've lost 6 ships. 3 more are heavily damaged. The human vessel appears to be targeting our engines specifically." "Why would they do that?" "Unknown, sir, but it's working. Our damaged ships can't maneuver or retreat." Nexith made a decision that went against everything he had learned in 3 centuries of conquest. "All ships, withdraw to long range. We need to report this to Supreme Admiral Valdros." The remaining hegemony ships pulled back, leaving their damaged vessels behind. The Defiant didn't pursue them. Instead, she moved among the crippled alien ships. "Captain," Park Ji-won said with surprise, "they're retreating. I can see that. Any idea why?" "Maybe they've never fought anyone who fought back this hard before." Captain Lee Hyun nodded. That made sense. If the hegemony was used to easy conquests, they might not know how to handle real resistance. "Kim Tae-ho, what's our status?" "Hull. Damage on 3 decks, but nothing critical. Shields are regenerating, weapons are fully operational. We're hurt, but we can keep fighting." "Casualties?" Song Yoon-ji's voice was tired but determined. 12 injured, 3 seriously. But everyone will live. The medical bay is handling it." Captain Lee Hyun looked at the damaged alien ships floating around them. Combat Engineer Lim Jong-hwan's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, some of these alien ships are still intact. We could board them and learn about their technology." "Do it. Take a team and see what you can find. But be careful." 20 minutes later, Lim Jong-hwan reported back from inside one of the alien vessels. "Captain, this is incredible. Their technology is advanced, but it's designed for fighting energy, weapons like their own. They have no defense against kinetic projectiles, and their computers contain star charts showing hundreds of conquered worlds. Any weaknesses you can exploit?" Their ships are controlled from centralized command centers. If you can take out the command ship, the entire fleet becomes confused. Also, their tactics assume the enemy will try to retreat or negotiate. They don't know how to handle opponents who keep attacking no matter what. Captain Lee Hyun smiled grimly. Good work, Lim. Get back to the ship. We need to prepare for the next attack. As the boarding team returned to the Defiant, Park Ji-won detected massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. Captain, the main alien fleet is coming. Hundreds of ships. They'll be here in 2 hours. Lee Hyun looked at his crew. They were tired and bloodied, but they were still ready to fight. Ladies and gentlemen, we just proved that the hegemony can be beaten. We destroyed half their advance force and sent the rest running, but this was just the warm-up. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We've won our first battle against an enemy that has conquered the galaxy. But they're not done with us yet. In 2 hours, we'll face their main fleet, hundreds of ships against one. The odds are not in our favor. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. But we've learned something important today. These aliens are used to fighting enemies who give up easily. They've never faced humans before. They don't understand that we fight harder when the odds are against us. They don't know that we'll never surrender our home. Throughout the ship, crew members listened to their captain's words and felt their determination grow stronger. Prepare for battle, everyone. Check your weapons, patch your wounds, and get ready to show the galaxy what humans can do when we're fighting for everything we hold dear. The Defiant turned toward Earth, ready to make her stand against the approaching enemy fleet. Behind her, the wreckage of alien ships drifted in space, proof that the unstoppable hegemony could be stopped after all. Supreme Admiral Valdros stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 6 of his best destroyers destroyed or crippled by a single primitive vessel. In 3 centuries of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Explain to me how one ship defeated our advance force, he demanded. War Commander Nexus stood before his superior, trying to find the right words. Sir, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They use kinetic weapons that our shields cannot deflect. They attack with no regard for their own safety, and they seem to prefer close combat over long-range engagement. Are you telling me that primitives who haven't even left their home system are better warriors than the hegemony? No, sir. But they are different. They don't follow standard tactical doctrine. They don't retreat when outnumbered. They don't negotiate when facing superior firepower. Valdros turned back to the display. The human ship appeared as a single red dot, moving to intercept his massive fleet. 300 ships against one. It should be the easiest battle in hegemony history. Deploy the full battle formation, he ordered. I want every ship ready for combat. We will overwhelm them with pure numbers. Meanwhile, near Jupiter, Admiral Choi Yuna coordinated Earth's desperate defense. Every available human ship was moving toward the rendezvous point. Patrol vessels, cargo haulers converted to carry weapons, even mining ships equipped with cutting lasers. It wasn't much, but it was everything humanity could manage. 37 ships total, reported Tactical Officer Yoon Dong-hyuk. Most of them are civilian vessels with minimal weapons and armor. They'll have to do, Admiral Choi replied. Every ship that can fight needs to be here. The UES Indomitable, Admiral Choi's flagship, led the small human fleet toward their rendezvous with the Defiant. It was a newer ship, almost as advanced as the Defiant, but still tiny compared to the approaching alien armada. On the Defiant, Captain Lee Hyun watched the human ships arrive one by one. They looked pitiful compared to the sleek alien vessels, but they were here. That's what mattered. "Captain," Park Ji-won announced, "Admiral Choi is requesting a tactical conference." The main screen lit up with images from all the human ships. Ship captains, most of them civilians who had never been in combat, looked nervous but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Choi began, "we're facing the largest invasion force in galactic history. 300 ships, each one more advanced than anything we've ever built. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered suicide." She paused, looking at each captain in turn. "But these are not normal circumstances. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for our species' right to exist. Captain Lee Hyun has already proven that these aliens can be beaten. Now we're going to prove it again." Captain Lee Hyun spoke up. "We've learned that their ships are vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Their shields are designed to stop energy beams, not solid projectiles, and their tactics assume we'll try to retreat when outnumbered." "What's the plan?" asked Captain Park Min-ho of the converted freighter Resilience. "We hit them hard and fast," Admiral Choi explained. "No fancy formations, no complex maneuvers. We go straight at them and don't stop until they're destroyed or we are." The conference ended, and the human ships spread out into a loose attack formation. They didn't look like much, but they carried something the aliens had never faced before: the absolute determination of people fighting for their home. Communications specialist Han Minji, now serving on the Indomitable, intercepted alien transmissions as the hegemony fleet approached. "Admiral, I'm picking up their communications. They're confused about our ship deployments. They keep asking each other why we're not retreating." "Let them be confused," Admiral Choi replied. "Confusion leads to mistakes." The alien fleet was massive. When it finally came into visual range, it looked like a metal cloud covering the stars. Hundreds of ships in perfect formation, their weapons charging for battle. Combat engineer Lim Jong-hwan worked frantically on the Defiant, installing alien weapon systems captured from the destroyed scouts. "Captain, I've got 2 of their energy cannons working. They're integrated into our targeting system now." "Excellent work. Every advantage helps." The 2 fleets approached each other across the void. On one side, 300 advanced warships representing an empire that had conquered the galaxy. On the other, 37 human vessels, most of them improvised and desperate. Supreme Admiral Valdros opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "I offer you one final chance to surrender. You have seen our power. You cannot win this battle. Submit now, and some of you may live to serve the hegemony." Admiral Choi responded immediately. "This is Admiral Choi Yuna of the United Earth Defense Force. We have an answer for you." She paused dramatically. "Go to hell." The battle began. The hegemony fleet opened fire first, sending waves of energy beams across space. The human ships scattered, avoiding the worst of the bombardment, but several vessels were hit immediately. The mining ship. Perseverance exploded in a ball of fire. The patrol vessel Guardian lost her engines and drifted helplessly, but the human ships kept coming. The Defiant led the charge, her railguns firing continuously. Captain Lee Hyun targeted the largest alien ships, trying to break their formation. Behind him, the rest of the human fleet spread out and attacked from multiple angles. "All ships, pick your targets and engage at will," Admiral Choi ordered. The converted freighter Resilience rammed into an alien cruiser, her improvised armor plating tearing through the enemy's hull. Both ships were destroyed, but the alien vessel took 3 others with it when its power core exploded. The patrol boat Courage, armed with nothing but mining lasers, managed to blind an alien destroyer's sensors before being vaporized by return fire. But in those crucial seconds, the UES Indomitable got close enough to launch a full spread of torpedoes. Park Ji-won coordinated electronic warfare from the Defiant, using captured alien technology to disrupt enemy communications. "Captain, I'm jamming their command frequencies. Their formation is starting to break apart." "Keep it up. Kang Ji-hoon, target their command ships. The big ones with all the antennas." The Defiant dove through the alien formation like an angry wasp, stinging targets and moving on before they could respond effectively. Her railguns punched holes in enemy armor while her new alien weapons added to the destruction. But the humans were taking heavy losses. More than half their ships were destroyed or disabled within the first hour of combat. The survivors pressed on, fighting with increasing desperation. On the alien flagship, Supreme Admiral Valdros watched his fleet struggle against an enemy that should have been crushed easily. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 47 ships. The humans are targeting our command and control system specifically." "How are they doing this?" "They're primitives. They appear to have studied our wreckage from the earlier engagement. They know our weaknesses now." Valdros felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Doubt. The humans were losing, but they were making him pay a terrible price for victory. Song Yoonji worked frantically in the Defiant's medical bay as casualties mounted. The ship had taken multiple hits, and several sections were sealed off due to hull breaches. "Medical teams to Deck 7, she announced over the intercom. "Multiple injuries in the engine room." Kim Taiho's voice came back immediately. "We're fine down here, Doc. Just a few burns. Keep the ship running and we'll keep the engines running." The battle raged across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Human ships, outnumbered 10 to 1, continued to fight even when their weapons were destroyed and their hulls were breached. The cargo hauler Independence, her engines dead and her crew dead, used her last moments to ram an alien battleship. The impact tore both vessels apart, but it created an opening that allowed 3 other human ships to escape. Admiral Choi, her flagship heavily damaged, coordinated the survivors with grim determination. "All remaining ships, form up on the Defiant. We're going to make one final push at their command ship." Only 12 human vessels remained operational. They gathered around the Defiant like wolves preparing for a last desperate attack. "Captain Lee," Admiral Choi said over the communication channel, "it's been an honor serving with you." "The honor is mine, Admiral. All ships, prepare for ramming speed. We're going to show them that humans never surrender." The surviving human fleet accelerated toward the alien command ship, their weapons blazing. They knew they probably wouldn't survive the next few minutes, but they also knew they had already accomplished something impossible. They had proven that the unstoppable hegemony could be stopped. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. The Eternal Dominion was the largest ship ever built by the hegemony. 2 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy planets, it had served as Supreme Admiral Valdros's flagship for over a century. Today, for the first time in its history, it was under direct attack. 12 human ships charged toward the massive vessel, their weapons blazing. They looked like insects attacking a giant, but Valdros was no longer underestimating these humans. "All defensive batteries, concentrate fire on the approaching vessels," he ordered. "Destroy them before they reach us." Energy beams lanced out from the alien flagship, striking the human ships one by one. The patrol boat Valor exploded immediately. The freighter New Hope lost her forward section but kept coming. The destroyer, Vigilant's shields failed and her hull began to melt under the alien fire. But the humans didn't stop. On the Defiant, Captain Lee Hyun watched his allies die around him. Each ship that fell took friends and comrades with it, people he had trained with, served with, trusted with his life. "Captain," Park Ji-won said quietly, "we're down to 8 ships. Hull integrity is at 60%. The aliens are concentrating all their fire on us. Good. Let them focus on us. That gives the others a better chance." The Defiant shook as another energy beam struck her shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, and smoke poured from damaged consoles. Kim Taeho's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I'm losing power to the forward shields. The fusion reactor is running beyond safety limits, but she'll hold together for a few more minutes." "That's all we need," Lee Hyun replied. "Kang Ji-hoon, target their engine sections. If we can't destroy that ship, maybe we can disable it." Weapons Officer Kang Ji-hoon worked with desperate efficiency, directing the ship's remaining weapons at critical points on the alien flagship. Railgun rounds punched through armor plating, while plasma torpedoes exploded deep inside enemy hull sections. "Direct hit on their starboard engine cluster," he reported. "They're losing power." The Eternal Dominion began to turn slowly, trying to bring more weapons to bear on the attacking humans. But the massive ship was damaged and sluggish. For the first time in its existence, it was vulnerable. Admiral Choi Yuna's flagship, the Indomitable, swept alongside the alien vessel. Her weapons fired continuously at point-blank range, tearing huge chunks out of the enemy's armor. All remaining ships, concentrate fire on the command section, she ordered. "We're going to cut the head off this snake." But the aliens weren't finished yet. War Commander Nexeth, serving on the flagship's bridge, coordinated the defensive fire with deadly precision. "Human ship at bearing 270, he called out. "All port batteries fire." The cargo hauler Liberty vanished in a blast of energy. The converted passenger liner Aurora lost her engines and began to drift. One by one, the human ships were being picked off. Supreme Admiral Valdros watched the battle with growing frustration. The humans had already cost him more ships than his. Last 10 conquests combined. His perfect fleet was in shambles, and his reputation was being destroyed by primitives who shouldn't even be able to scratch his paint. "Sir," his tactical officer announced, "the humans are jamming our communications again. Several of our ships are having trouble receiving orders." "How are they doing this?" "They don't have our technology. They appear to have captured some of our equipment from the earlier battle. They're using it against us." Valdros felt rage building inside him. This was supposed to be a simple conquest, another primitive species added to the hegemony's collection. Instead, it had become a nightmare. "Prepare. The planet killer weapon," he ordered. "Sir?" His tactical officer looked shocked. "That weapon is reserved for dealing with fortified worlds. Using it on ships would be—" "I don't care. Charge the weapon. We're ending this now." On the Defiant, Park Ji-won detected massive energy buildup in the alien flagship's core. "Captain, they're powering up something huge. Energy readings are off the charts." Captain Lee Hyun knew what that meant. The aliens were preparing to use their ultimate weapon, the same kind of weapon they had used to destroy the asteroid belt. "All ships. This is Captain Lee Hyun. The enemy is charging their planet killer. We have maybe 2 minutes before they fire. If anyone wants to retreat, now is the time." The response came immediately from Admiral Choi. "Retreat? We're human, Captain. We don't retreat." Similar responses came from the surviving ship captains, the freighter Determination, the destroyer Resolute, the patrol boat Defiance. None of them were leaving. "Then we go down fighting," Lee Hyun said. "All ships ramming speed. Target the weapon charging section. The last few human ships accelerated toward the alien flagship, their engines pushed beyond maximum safe limits. They had no chance of survival, but they might be able to prevent the weapon from firing. Combat engineer Lim Jong-hwan worked frantically in the Defiant's torpedo bay. "Captain, I've rigged our last torpedoes with overloaded fusion warheads. If we can get close enough, the explosion might damage their weapon systems. Do it!" The Defiant dove toward the Eternal Dominion's weapon array, her hull glowing from repeated energy strikes. Half her systems were offline, and her armor was melted in dozens of places, but her weapons were still firing. Song Yoonji treated wounded. Crew members in the medical bay while the ship shook around them. Hull breaches had forced her to evacuate 3 sections, but she kept working. "Captain," she called out over the intercom, "we've got injured crew trapped in Section 12. The bulkhead is sealed, but they're alive. I'll get them," Lim Jong-hwan replied immediately. "Just give me 5 minutes." "We might not have 5 minutes," Lee Hyun said grimly. The planet killer weapon was almost ready to fire. Energy readings showed it would be capable of destroying every human ship with a single blast. But then something unexpected happened. The freighter. Determination, her captain already dead and her crew down to 3 survivors, managed to ram the alien flagship's weapon array. The improvised warship exploded on impact, her fusion reactor overloading in a chain reaction that tore through the alien ship's hull. The planet killer weapon's charging sequence was interrupted. Energy feedback surged through the system, causing explosions throughout the Eternal Dominion's core. "Weapon systems offline," the alien tactical officer reported in shock. "Massive damage to the primary power grid." Supreme Admiral Valdros stared at the destruction in disbelief. A primitive cargo ship had just disabled his most powerful weapon. "How is this possible?" he whispered. War Commander Nexus had been watching the human attacks with growing respect. "Sir, I think I understand now. These humans aren't fighting for conquest or territory. They're fighting for something else." "What?" "They're fighting for their right to exist. Every one of them is willing to die rather than surrender their freedom." Valdros had conquered species that fought for resources. He had defeated empires that battled for dominance, but he had never faced an enemy that fought for principles. The remaining human ships pressed their attack. The Defiant, now the last, operational warship in the fleet, continued to pound the alien flagship with everything she had. "Captain," Park Jawan announced, "their command section is heavily damaged. They're losing main power." "Keep firing. We're not stopping until they surrender, or we're dead." But the Defiant was dying too. Her fusion reactor was overheating, her hull was breached in 20 places, and half her crew was dead or wounded. She was held together by determination and the skill of her chief engineer. Kim Taeho's voice came over the intercom one last time. "Captain, the reactor is going critical. We've got maybe 10 minutes before it overloads." Captain Lee Hyun looked around his damaged bridge. His officers were wounded and exhausted, but they were still fighting. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, quietly, "it's been an honor serving with you." They had bought Earth time. They had proven that humans would never surrender, and they had shown the galaxy that even the mighty hegemony could be defeated. Now all that remained was to see if their sacrifice would be enough. The final moments of the battle were approaching, and both sides knew that only one would survive to see the outcome. Lieutenant Park Ji-won's fingers flew across her console as she analyzed the flood of intercepted alien communications. The Defiant's electronic warfare systems, enhanced with captured hegemony technology, were picking up transmissions from across the enemy fleet. "Captain," she called out excitedly, I found something important. Captain Lee Hyun turned from the tactical display where he had been watching the final approach to the alien flagship. What is it? Their entire fleet operates on a centralized command network. Every ship receives orders directly from the Eternal Dominion. If we can disrupt their command ship's ability to communicate, the rest of their fleet will be paralyzed. Lee Hyun felt a spark of hope. How do we do that? We need to get inside their ship and physically destroy their main communication array. It's heavily shielded, so we can't damage it from outside. The Defiant shuddered as another energy beam struck her weakened shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Captain Kim. Taeho's voice crackled over the damaged intercom system. The fusion reactor is becoming unstable. We've got maybe 5 minutes before it goes critical. Lee Hyun made a decision that would change the course of the battle. All hands, prepare for boarding action. We're going inside that alien ship. Communications specialist Han Minji, monitoring all frequencies from her station on Luna, detected the change immediately. Admiral, she reported to Admiral Choi, the Defiant is preparing to board the enemy flagship. Are they insane? Admiral Choi replied. That ship is 10 times their size. Maybe that's exactly why it might work, Tactical Officer Yoon Dong-yuk observed. The aliens probably aren't expecting anyone to be crazy enough to try it. On the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Admiral Valdros was dealing with reports of system failures throughout his ship. The human ramming attack had caused more damage than anyone had expected. Sir, his tactical officer announced, the human vessel is approaching at close range. They appear to be attempting a docking maneuver. Impossible. Destroy them before they reach us. Our defensive batteries in that section have been disabled, sir. And the ship is too close for our main weapons to target effectively. Valdros felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Panic. These humans were doing things that no rational species would attempt. Combat engineer Lim Jong-hwan led the boarding party from the Defiant. 23 human Marines, armed with the best weapons Earth could produce, prepared to assault a ship containing thousands of alien warriors. Remember, he told his team as they prepared to breach the alien hull, we're not trying to conquer this ship. We just need to reach their communication center and destroy it. The cutting torches burned through the alien armor plating. Within minutes, the humans had created an entry point into the Eternal Dominion's hull. Go, go, go! Lim Jong-hwan shouted. The boarding party poured through the breach into an alien corridor. The environment was different from human ships. The air was thicker, the gravity was lighter, and the lighting had a strange blue tint. But the humans adapted quickly. Tactical Officer Yoon Dong-yuk, leading a second boarding team from the few surviving human ships, coordinated the assault from his position on a damaged destroyer. Team 1, you're heading for the main communication array. Team 2 will secure the route back to your ships. Team 3 will cause as much general chaos as possible. The aliens had never faced borders before. The hegemony's standard tactics involved overwhelming enemies from a distance. They weren't prepared for close-quarters combat inside their own ships. The first hegemony soldiers the humans encountered were tall, elegant creatures wearing ornate armor. They carried energy weapons designed for precision rather than raw firepower. When the humans opened fire with their kinetic weapons, the aliens fell quickly. These guys aren't used to this kind of fighting, reported Marine Sergeant Lee Sun-ho over the radio. Their armor is decorative, not protective. Lim Jong-hwan's team fought their way deeper into the alien ship. The corridors were wide and curved, designed more for ceremony than defense. The humans moved quickly, using their knowledge of the ship's layout gained from captured data. War Commander Nexith tried to organize a defense, but his troops were scattered throughout the massive vessel. The humans were moving too fast for him to coordinate an effective response. "Where are they going?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. They seem to know our ship's layout better than we do." On the Defiance bridge, Captain Lee Hyun monitored the boarding action while trying to keep his dying ship operational. "Park Ji-won, how long until the reactor goes critical?" 2 minutes, Captain. Maybe less." "And our boarding teams?" "They're 30 seconds away from the communication array." Lee Hyun made another impossible decision. "Kim Tae-ho, can you stabilize the reactor for another 5 minutes?" "Not without risking an explosion that could destroy half the alien fleet." "Do it anyway." The chief engineer's voice was calm despite the circumstances. "Understood, Captain. 5 more minutes, no matter what it costs." Deep inside the Eternal Dominion, Lim Jong-hwan's team reached the main communications center. It was a vast chamber filled with sophisticated equipment that pulsed with energy. "This is it," he announced. "Plant the charges." The human Marines worked quickly, placing explosive devices at critical points throughout the alien communication array. They had trained for this moment, but they had never expected to actually do it aboard an enemy flagship. "Charges set," reported Corporal Kim Nari. 2 minutes to detonation." "All teams, pull back," Lim Jong-hwan ordered. "We're done here." But the aliens had finally organized their defenses. As the humans tried to retreat, they found their path blocked by heavily armed hegemony soldiers. "We're trapped," Lee Sun-ho reported. "Enemy forces between us and the exit." Yoon Dong-hyuk, coordinating from outside, made a tactical decision. "Team 3, create a diversion. Draw the aliens away from Team 1's position." The third boarding party, led by Lieutenant Commander Oh Ki-young, launched a ferocious attack on the alien ship's engine room. The distraction worked, pulling defenders away from the communications center. Supreme Admiral Valdros arrived at the communications center just as the human charges exploded. The sophisticated equipment that controlled his entire fleet was destroyed. "In seconds! No!" he screamed, but it was too late. Across the hegemony fleet, ship commanders suddenly found themselves cut off from Central Command. For the first time in their military careers, they had to make decisions without orders from their superiors. Some ships continued fighting. Others began to withdraw. A few simply stopped dead in space, their crews paralyzed by the lack of clear instructions. Captain Lee Hyun watched from the Defiant as the alien formation began to break apart. "It's working," Park Ji-won announced with amazement. "Their fleet is losing coordination. Individual ships are acting independently." "How long until our reactor explodes?" 30 seconds, Captain." Lee Hyun activated the ship-wide communication system one last time. "All hands, this is the captain. We've accomplished our mission. The alien fleet is disabled. It's been an honor serving with you all." He looked around the bridge at his surviving officers. They had done the impossible. A single human ship had defeated the greatest military force in galactic history. "Sir," Park Ji-won said quietly, "the boarding teams are still aboard the alien ship." Lee Hyun closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with new determination. "Kim Tae-ho, give me everything the reactor has left. One final push." "Captain, the ship will explode." "I know, but our people are coming home." The Defiant's engines roared to life one last time, pulling away from the Eternal Dominion, just as the human boarding teams emerged from the damaged alien hull. They leapt across the gap between ships, some making it safely, while others fell into the void. Lim Jong-hwan was the last to cross, diving through space as the Defiant's reactor finally went critical. The explosion that followed lit up the solar system like a second sun. But in its wake, something unprecedented had happened. The unstoppable hegemony fleet was retreating in confusion, their command structure destroyed by a handful of humans who had refused to surrender. The first battle was over. Humanity had won. The silence that followed the Defiant's destruction was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. For the first time in 3 centuries, a hegemony fleet was retreating. Supreme Admiral Valdros stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching his scattered forces attempt to regroup without central coordination. Ships that had operated in perfect formation for decades were now drifting aimlessly, their commanders unsure what to do without orders from above. "Status report," he demanded, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Sir," his tactical officer replied nervously, "we've lost 68 ships completely destroyed, 43 heavily damaged, and our entire command and control network is offline. The fleet is scattered." War Commander Nexith approached, his superior carefully. In all his years of service, he had never seen Valdros look so defeated. "Sir, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We can regroup and return with reinforcements." Valdros turned to stare at him. "Withdrawal? The hegemony does not withdraw. We have never retreated from any world. With respect, sir, we have never faced humans before." On the human side, Admiral Choi Yuna coordinated rescue operations from Luna Station. The few surviving human ships were picking up escape pods and survivors from the battle zone. The cost had been terrible, but they had achieved something impossible. "Final casualty reports," she requested grimly. Tactical Officer Yoon Dong-hyuk consulted his screens. "We've lost 31 ships out of 37. Approximately 800 personnel killed or missing. The Defiant's crew." He paused. "No survivors detected from the reactor explosion." Admiral Choi closed her eyes. Briefly, Captain Lee Hyun and his crew had given their lives to save Earth. Their sacrifice would never be forgotten. "What about the boarding teams?" 17 survivors out of 43. Combat engineer Lim Jong-hwan is among them, badly injured but alive. Communications specialist Han Minji looked up from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from across the solar system. Every human settlement is asking about the battle. They want to know if we won." Admiral Choi considered. The question: had they won? Earth was still safe and the alien fleet was retreating. But the cost had been enormous. "Tell them," she said finally, "that humanity endures. The invasion has been stopped." Across the solar system, the news spread like wildfire. On Mars, in the asteroid mining stations, on the orbital habitats around Jupiter, humans who had been preparing for the worst received word that the impossible had happened. Earth's defenders had defeated the Galactic Empire. But the victory was not without consequences. Word of the battle began to spread beyond the solar system, carried by automated communication relays and refugee ships. For species that had lived under hegemony rule for centuries, the news was revolutionary. On Kepler 442b, a world conquered 50 years earlier, the native population heard about humanity's victory and began to whisper about rebellion. On Proxima Centauri C, enslaved miners started to organize secret resistance cells. Throughout the galaxy, the impossible news spread. The hegemony could be defeated. War Commander Nexith found himself in an unprecedented situation. Many of his fellow officers were questioning orders for the first time in their careers. The certainty that had driven the hegemony for centuries was cracking. "Commander," approached one of his subordinates, "the crew is asking questions. They want to know how primitive aliens defeated our fleet." "They're not primitive," Nexith replied thoughtfully. "They're just different from anyone we've ever fought." "Different how?" Nexith thought about Captain Lee Hyun, who had issued ultimatums to a vastly superior force. About the human ships that had continued fighting even when their destruction was certain. About the boarding teams that had sacrificed themselves to complete their mission. "They fight for something we've forgotten," he said finally. "They fight for principles." 3 hours after the Defiant's destruction, Supreme Admiral Valdros made a decision that shocked his entire fleet. He opened a communication channel to the human forces. Admiral Choi Yuna received the transmission on Luna Station, where she was coordinating relief efforts for the battle survivors. "This is Supreme Admiral Kithex Valdros of the Vilthron Hegemony," the alien commander began. His voice was different now, lacking the arrogant confidence it had held before. "I request negotiations." The human command center fell silent. No one had expected this. "Negotiations?" Admiral Choi replied carefully. "What kind of negotiations?" "A cessation of hostilities. Terms for withdrawal. I have never encountered a species like yours. You fight with a determination that defies logical analysis." Admiral Choi looked around at her staff. They were all thinking the same thing. This was the first time in galactic history that the hegemony had asked for negotiations. "What are your terms?" she asked. "We will withdraw our forces from your system. In exchange, you will not pursue us or interfere with our operations elsewhere in the galaxy." "And what about the worlds you've already conquered? The species you've enslaved?" There was a long pause before Valdros responded. "That is not part of these negotiations." Admiral Choi felt anger rise in her chest. "Then there will be no negotiations. We didn't fight just to save ourselves. We fought for the principle that no one should be enslaved by force." The transmission ended. Admiral Choi turned to her officers. "Prepare our remaining ships for pursuit operations. We're not letting them escape to conquer more worlds." "But Yoon," Dongyuk looked concerned. "Admiral, we have 6 operational ships left. They still have over 200. "Numbers aren't everything," Admiral Choi replied, echoing the words of Captain Lee Hyun. "They've lost something more important than ships. They've lost their confidence." She was right. Across the hegemony fleet, crews were questioning everything they had believed. Ship commanders who had followed orders without question for decades were now wondering if there might be another way. War Commander Nexith made a decision that would change his life forever. He activated his ship's internal communication system. "This is War Commander Nexith. I am speaking to all crew members of the Redemption. Today, we suffered our first defeat in 3 centuries. But more than that, we learned something important." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We learned that there are species in the galaxy who value freedom more than their own lives, who fight not for conquest, but for principles. I have served the hegemony faithfully for over a century, but today I saw something that made me question everything we do." Throughout his ship, crew members listened with growing amazement. "I am going to offer my services to the humans, not as a conqueror, but as someone who wants to learn what it means to fight for something greater than empire." Other ship commanders heard the transmission. Some were horrified by what they saw as treason, but others found themselves nodding, in agreement. Supreme Admiral Valdros realized that his fleet was not just physically scattered. It was ideologically fractured. The certainty that had held the hegemony together for centuries was broken. "All ships," he broadcast, "prepare for immediate withdrawal from this system." But several vessels didn't acknowledge the order. War Commander Nexith's ship, the Redemption, was already transmitting surrender terms to the human forces. Admiral Choi Yuna received the unexpected communication with surprise. "This is War Commander Nexith of the Hegemony Vessel Redemption. I request permission to surrender my ship and crew. We wish to learn from you." "Learn what?" Admiral Choi asked. "How to fight for something other than conquest. How to serve principles instead of empire." As more hegemony ships followed Nexith's example, a pattern became clear. The humans hadn't just won a military victory. They had started a revolution that would spread across the galaxy. Species that had accepted hegemony rule for centuries began to question their fate. Hegemony officers who had never considered alternatives to conquest started to imagine different possibilities. The battle for Earth was over, but something much larger was just beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with people who refused to surrender their freedom. The age of unchallenged hegemony dominance was ending. In its place, something new was about to be born. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation, humanity's newest flagship. The ship had been built using a combination of human engineering and hegemony technology, representing the galaxy's first truly cooperative military vessel. Admiral Choi Yuna had promoted him after the battle, honoring the memory of Captain Lee Hyun by giving his surname to the officer who had led the survivors. The new Admiral Lee had been born Kim Ji-won, but she had chosen to carry forward the name of the man who had changed galactic history. "Admiral," reported Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho from his station, "all systems are operational. The hybrid power core is running at peak efficiency." Kim Tae-ho had survived the Defiant's destruction by being on a damage control mission in a sealed section when the reactor exploded. He had spent 2 days in an escape pod before being rescued, and now he served as the chief engineer for the entire human fleet. "Excellent work, Chief. Han Minji, what's our status with the diplomatic mission?" Communications specialist Han Minji, now serving as the chief diplomatic liaison, checked her displays. "The Kepler delegation should arrive within the hour. They're very excited about signing the Mutual Defense Treaty." The Liberation was orbiting a neutral world where representatives from dozens of species were gathering for the first Galactic Freedom Conference. It was an event that would have been impossible just months earlier. "And what about our hegemony observers?" Commander Nexith reports that his ship is maintaining position at the edge of the system. He says his crew is eager to participate, but they understand if some species are nervous about their presence. Admiral Lee nodded. Nexith and his followers had proven themselves over the past 3 months, helping to liberate 6 worlds from hegemony control. But many species still found it hard to trust former conquerors. In his quarters aboard the reformed hegemony ship Redemption, Nexith studied reports from across the galaxy. The revolution that had started at Earth was spreading faster than anyone had expected. "Commander," his aide reported, "we've received word from the Centauri system. The local hegemony garrison has surrendered to a combined human-native resistance force. They're requesting our assistance with the transition to independence." Nexith felt a complex mixture of emotions. Part of him mourned for the empire he had served faithfully for over a century, but another part was excited about the possibilities this new galaxy offered. "Prepare a course for Centauri, and send a message to Admiral Lee. Tell her we'll need human advisors for the liberation process." On Earth, medical officer Song Yunji worked in a hospital that had been converted to treat refugees from across the galaxy. Species that had lived under hegemony rule for centuries were arriving on Earth to seek medical treatment and learn about human society. "Doctor," called her assistant, "the Andromedan delegation has arrived for their scheduled consultation." Song Yunji looked up from her research. She had been studying alien physiology for months, learning how to treat species that humanity had never encountered before. It was challenging work, but also deeply rewarding. Send them in, and make sure to have the universal translator ready. The Andromedans were tall, graceful beings with silver skin and large, expressive eyes. They had been enslaved by the hegemony for over 2 centuries, forced to serve as scientists and engineers for their conquerors. Dr. Song, the lead Andromedan, said through the translator, "Our people owe you a debt we can never repay. Your medical techniques have saved thousands of our people. You don't owe us anything," Song Yunji replied gently. "Helping others is what we do." Combat engineer Lim Jonghuan, recovered from his injuries sustained during the boarding action, now led joint military training exercises on Mars. Former hegemony soldiers worked alongside human marines, learning new tactics based on cooperation, rather than domination. "Remember," he told a mixed group of trainees, "the old hegemony way was to overwhelm enemies with superior numbers and technology. But we've learned that determination and principles can overcome any technological advantage." Former hegemony sergeant raised his hand. "Sir, what if we encounter enemies who won't listen to reason? Some species might prefer conquest to cooperation." Lim Jonghuan nodded. "That's a good question. The answer is that we fight when we have to, but we always try to understand our enemies first. Sometimes the best victory is turning an enemy into an ally." Back on the Liberation, Admiral Lee received a priority transmission from Earth. The message was from Admiral Choi Yuna, who had remained on Earth to coordinate the growing alliance of free worlds. "Admiral Lee," the transmission began, "I have news from the Galactic Core. Supreme Admiral Valdros has been removed from command by the Hegemony High Council. They're blaming him for the defeat at Earth and the subsequent rebellions." "Admiral," Lee felt a mixture of satisfaction and concern. Valdros had been their enemy, but his removal might not improve the situation. "What's his replacement like?" she asked. "Unknown. Intelligence suggests the new leadership is more radical than Valdros. They might attempt a larger invasion force to reclaim their lost territory. Then we'd better be ready for them." The galactic situation was indeed becoming more complex. While many worlds were declaring independence and joining the growing freedom alliance, the remaining hegemony forces were consolidating their power. The galaxy was effectively splitting into 2 camps, those who believed in freedom and cooperation, and those who still supported conquest and domination. Navigator Oh Sung-jae, now serving as the Liberation's strategic planning officer, approached Admiral Lee with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, we're tracking at least 40 worlds that have declared independence in the past month. But the hegemony is reinforcing their core territories. They're not giving up without a fight." "How many ships do they still have?" "Conservative estimate? Around 1,500 vessels. But many of them are older designs and their crews are reportedly suffering from low morale." Admiral Lee studied the tactical displays. The numbers were still daunting, but they had advantages that weren't visible on any chart. "Oh, Sung-jae, what would you say is our greatest strength?" The navigator thought for a moment. "Our technology is improving rapidly thanks to the alliance with reformed hegemony forces. Our tactics are proving superior to traditional hegemony doctrine. But I think our real advantage is that we're fighting for something worth dying for. Exactly. The